Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the stars above us for the week ahead. It's Monday. That means we get to take a look ahead at the whole of the week. And we're talking about one of those weeks where you might look up at the astrology, look up at the sky, and think, not much is going on. But here's the truth. These are often the weeks where that things that we've that have gone before matter the most, right? This is the time where even though some of the dramas and traumas have quieted down on the surface, at least, that's when the realignment happens under the surface. So it's a week perhaps of integration. It's a week perhaps of seeing things in a new way. So the feeling tone of this entire week isn't chaotic, right? Some weeks, like last week, was a bit chaotic, and we've had, other weeks in this month, and especially last month, February, where it felt very chaotic. This is not an eclipse week. It's not a life blows up kind of week, unless, of course, you've been resisting the changes that have been coming down the pike in your life. And then you've got to face the changes, right? You've got to face what's going on. So this is a kind of week where it's a getting your footing kind of week, right? Where you're kind of, let's put our feet back on the ground, let's settle in, let's determine what next direction we need to take, where it is that we're moving, and go from there. Okay. And we just came through yesterday's Sun conjunct Neptune energy, which is still activated today. And I'll show you the chart here in a few minutes. And that energy can feel a little bit like the fog is lifting, right? The bright light of the sun on the planet that creates fog and blurred lines means that confusion maybe is dissolving, or even, that bit of emotional vulnerability, even volatility that we've been feeling can be kind of tamped down a bit, which is awesome. You may have noticed over the weekend that something that you've believed, that you've cherished, that it's been sort of a sacred cow kind of thing, doesn't quite hold anymore. It doesn't have its tight constraints over you anymore. Something you dreamed needs refining, right? Maybe you're opening up to see, well, what more is possible in my life? How can I create my dreams in reality? Or maybe something inside of you this weekend started to say, okay, now what? Right? Now what? Now where am I going? And that question, now what, is exactly right where this week begins, right? It begins with the now what? Where do I go? Where do I take it from now? So anyway, good morning to those of you who are showing up early with me. It is, I saw Julie out there. Good morning to Julie. Christine Buckingham, good morning to you. And Namira, good morning. Mistel Chambliss, good morning to you as well. And Christine Buckingham says, oh no, haven't watched any news yet today. Hope no one was hurt in the airplane. I'm not sure that it was a crash. I believe it looked like the plane was ready to take off, or maybe it was landing and it hit a fire truck or an emergency vehicle or something, some kind of vehicle on the tarmac. And the two pilots were killed, but nobody else was killed that I could tell. Anyway, that's the early thing that has been on the news this morning. And you may have noticed that other things are kind of evening out. This war that we are engaged with Iran is sort of quieted down in some respects. I mean, it doesn't mean there isn't still stuff happening, but it's not as loud and dramatic as it has been in the news before. But this week, we have the Sun meeting Saturn, right? Because Saturn and Neptune are very close together in the sign of Aries, and within like 2 or 3 degrees of each other. Let's see, this morning, Neptune is at 1 degree, 53 minutes, and Saturn at 4 degrees, 26 minutes. So they're about 3.5, 4 minutes apart from one another, or 4 degrees, excuse me. And that puts the Sun newly in the sign of Aries as of Friday, in the middle of these two giant Titan planets, right? So the Sun is sort of mediating this energy of the visionary Neptune, of the idealistic Neptune, of the confusing Neptune, and the Saturn that is all about the structure and the building of the future, right? So the structure and the form, the discipline it takes to build. And this is where this week then things get real. So yesterday was the conjunction to Neptune. So we had the whole, vision, dreamy kind of energy. And this week we have Saturn. But Saturn doesn't ask us how we feel, right? Neptune, a little bit more feely, touchy-feely, emotional, uh, um, but not Saturn, right? Saturn doesn't do that. Saturn asks, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Right? You've had this time. You've actually had since the beginning of the calendar year, even just before that, from say the winter solstice, for the dream time, right? For thinking and dreaming and questioning what comes next. What do I want? Where am I, going to stand up and be counted? And now is the time where we take that action. So this is the moment where vision, that dream self, meets responsibility, right? The responsibility to take action, where your identity meets your maturity, right? Maturing the ideas, maturing your next steps out there in the world. This is where inspiration meets structure, right? Saturn, the planet that builds. So this is a Bob the Builder kind of week, right? Where it's the next steps. What are you going to do? And in Aries, this is personal, right? This is the I am uh, zodiac sign. So if this is the I am sign, then what is the I am doing, right? So doing. You might be asking the question, who do you choose to be now, right? Who are you choosing to be now? What are you choosing to do now? It's about the choice, the choosing, right? And doing it now, not someday in the future, not when things get easier, not when the economy is better or when the war is over. It's now, because right now your confidence is on the uptick. It's on the uprise, right? Now that, we have the Saturn and Sun coming into conjunction, the Sun, which highlighted the dream yesterday, on Wednesday this week, highlights the what do I do next? And for all intents and purposes, it's already highlighting that, right? He's right smack in the middle, the sun is between Neptune and Saturn. So he's already focusing our energy there, right? So take yourself more seriously. Take your dreams more seriously. That's what it seems to be saying, right? Take your dreams more seriously. Enact your dreams. Take your path seriously, right? That path that lies before you, putting one foot in front of the other, then putting the next foot in front of that one, and so on and so on and so on. And take your life more seriously, not just yourself, but now your life as well, your purpose. Why am I here? Why have I just been sort of, monkeying around, going around in circles? Now, this is not necessarily in the typical Saturn heavy kind of way. It's in a self-honoring way, right? Honoring the self along this path of purpose and setting out to do things, right? To actually take the action. Now, Pluto is also going to get involved this week. We've been kind of silent on the Pluto issue other than in the background, right? But this week Saturn and Pluto are going to meet, and uh that means that Sun in Saturn conjunction is actually very supportive of what will be a Saturn-Pluto sextile. And the sextile, a 60-degree relationship between the two planets, is a time of harmonizing and setting us up for the next steps, right? And both the Sun and Saturn are making supportive connections then to Pluto. And Pluto never wastes an opportunity to empower, to transform, right? Even when things feel calm, Pluto is underneath the surface, reshaping things, right? Reshaping your life, reshaping the world, reshaping our beliefs, reshaping and transforming. He's repatterning. So there's a pattern that is being reshaped. Then we also have repowering, right? Because these are sextiles, um, and conjunctions. They're not squares or oppositions, so there's not the same level of negative energy. I don't want to use negative energy of objections, of problems, of challenges. So this isn't really pressure as much as this is an invitation week, right? This is an invitation to step into your power. This is a week to make different choices, right? Pluto, Saturn, Sun, Neptune, even still involved here. Make different choices and align with a deeper truth, right? A deeper truth within you. And here's the key. The key for this week is that nothing forces you to change, right? There isn't the square that really puts the feeling of I've got to do something. I've got to get this done. I've got to challenge myself. There's not an opposition pulling you in two opposite directions, right? It's not that at all. It is much more an opportunity for you to move forward and to do the things that you want to do. So let's take a look at the chart. First, let me say good morning to everybody else that's joined us here. Gayla, good morning to you. Julie, yes, two people had died. Teddy, good morning. And JLo, good morning. And Harmonize, I love that. Happy Monday to you as well. And I see those of you behind the scenes there. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. So, as we take a look at this chart, let me make this bigger so I can see it. And I know you can't see my cursor moving around, but let me call your attention to the outlined area in orange. So here is where you can see that this is a chart of the moment, right? So I drew up this chart at 7:07 a.m. For Cedar Woolley, Washington, where I live. So this is West Coast timing. That means it was just a little after 10 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast when I drew up this chart this morning. And as you can see, we had an ascendant in Aries, right? So the day, if you will, began, if we took the energy of the day begins with the sun, or I mean, with the ascendant, the rising sign, the outlook of the day is in Aries. And then that is also conjunct Neptune and the sun and Saturn. So I circled these because they are all sort of together here. But we still have Venus and we have Eris and we have Chiron also in Aries. So we have this long train, and we've had this going on since last April, right? Where off and on there was a significant focus on the energy of sovereignty, of claiming yourself, of being, really called to stand up and live your I am self, right? To really be you. And here we have, this pattern right now where things are getting more and more Aries like, to be joined by Mars as we get into April, and to be joined by Mercury as we get into later April. And to the point where this entire house is almost so crowded you can't fit all the symbols in there. So this is a significant time for us to really take a look at what it is that we're doing. Um, I there is a high and a low to all of this energy, right? The high being, we see ourselves clearly. And from that position, we also see others clearly, and we allow for others to be their true selves, right? To live their light. Um, and we also understand the world at a different level with Aries energy. It is also, on the more negative side, a less mature energy, right? It's youthful, it's dynamic, it sometimes is impulsive. It is an energy that often thinks last, right? It's going to act first, think last. And that can sometimes be awesome if, you're, jumping on the bandwagon for something that's pretty powerful and exciting, but it can also be very daunting if you are jumping and leaping into things before you've really considered how it might impact you and if this was really something that is true for you. And here's where I think, human design gets really interesting because, the archetypal evolutionary impulse energy is shown through your astrology. So all of these planets represents archetypes. They represent the potential for what could be, and it is kind of the alignment of the cycles of time and where you fall in that cycle of time. When we get to human design, it's a completely different tale, right? It's not even though we use the planets and the planets are very important and where they're placed is very important, it's an energetic signature for you. It's more about how you personally are designed to interact with people in the world, in your relationships, and the frequency of those energies, and how it is that you are here to make the best decisions for you. So while we have this, builder week of energy, we've had this long train of Aries energy asking us to live our I am. Do you know what that means? Do you know? You might know, hey, I am an Aries, right? I have a brother and a sister-in-law whose birthdays are coming up, very Aries people. But do they know what their Aries um, human design energy is for them? Do they know that? Probably not, right? Because that's just not something they've ever asked me to tell them. So I don't force those things on my family. When they ask questions about what I do and how it relates to them, I will answer that question. But for you guys out here listening, this is a time for you to really get clarity about what it is that your own personal frequency is. What are you here to do? And how are you here to do it? That's your human design. The astrology tells you the energy of the cycles that you are engaged in, and a lot about your personality and how you go about doing certain things. So it's an interesting combination. You kind of almost have to have both in order to see clearly. And we do the same thing with transiting planets. So we've been seeing that now the sun and Neptune, and the ascendant for today's chart is in the 25th gate, the gate that sits on the identity center, that is called the gate of the love of spirit. So it has a very highly spiritual connotation to it. It shows up in the world in a way that points out where we are not in alignment with universal love. And that personally is also the case for you, depending on if you have other planets at the gate 25. Now you're adding Neptune and the sun's energy to this very powerful gate. And it really tells us about the divine nature of the human beings that we are. But at the same time that we have the sun in the gate 25, we have the earth at the gate 46, a very physical gate. This is called the gate of the love of the body, or the gate of embodiment in quantum human design. So this is where the divine resides within the physical realm inside you, right? So the vehicle is the body, and inhabiting that vehicle is your divine self, your soul, your higher self, whatever the terms, words are that you want to use. And so the question this week really becomes, as an embodied spirit, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are you going to present yourself to the world? And of course, if you know your own human design, you know that goes along the lines of your incarnation cross, which is the sun earth and sun earth from both the physical or the personality side and the design side. Now that's a deeper conversation, and I kind of opened up a little bit of a monkey tube here, but it is, technically speaking, a time of the year, a time of the cycle that we're in, for everyone to get clear about who they are and what it is that they want to do. Now, there is no fate. There's no fate that says you have to do this and you have to do this way, right? You all still have very much a connection to free will. And that free will is about how it is that you want to do these things, right? You get to choose the timing, and sometimes you get to choose when it is that you're going to do this. But often it's also divine timing, right? Because the divine you inside of you is also aware of when the right timing is to do things. But the ego, which is the embodiment side, can also override the divine timing. So we have to be very aware of what it is we're doing and when we're doing it, and is it the right time, which takes us back to our human design type and strategy. Okay, so I'm getting off track here. I wanted to show you the astrology chart, but I wanted you to see yourself as a little more spherically engaged as opposed to just like, oh, this is where Aries is in my chart, and so this is what's happening. Which, by the way, if this chart were a person, this person would have Aries on the first house, which means this person is going through a time of personal reorganization, personal awakening, a lot of individual, maybe self-centeredness happening for this person, as is right, because that is what is this person's job right at this moment. Wherever you have Aries in your chart is where you are undergoing this standing up and being counted kind of energy. Okay. And I did run down the houses of this for everybody. I think I did that on either last Monday or on Friday when we were talking about the astrology or the astrological new year and where this energy of Aries was happening. So I drew this other line here, this green line, because Neptune, the Sun, and Saturn are all in a sextile to our fellow transformer planet, Pluto. And that's an important thing. This is such an important part of the cycle of Pluto. So, let's see, Saturn and Pluto made their conjunction at 0 Aquarius on winter solstice 2020. So if you think back, that's like, geez, 6 years ago, right? A little more than 6 years ago, or just about 5.5 years ago. So what was going on in your life at that time? What was seeded? Because not only, I mean, culturally, something was seeded, societally, something was seeded, right? In the bigger evolution of things on this planet, something was seeded that day, right? That conjunction, actually, that was in January of 2021, I believe it was when that actually happened. It was the Jupiter Saturn conjunction in the winter solstice of 2020. So, but we had this idea that something new was being seeded with Pluto. And now they've reached far enough into the cycle that they are at the 60-degree relationship. Now that excludes Neptune. Neptune and Pluto had their conjunction way back, that they move much slower with the orbit of one another, but they have been in a long-term sextile with one another, literally off and on since the 60s. And at this point, they are entering into what will be the last of the sextile energy between them, right? As Neptune will start to move further on, Pluto moving significantly slower, they won't continue this relationship for much longer. And then the sextiles are these energies that really begin the building process, right? The sextile says, okay, you've got the seed, and now the seed has popped up above the surface of the soil, and we can start to see the need to till the soil, to weed the soil, to feed the plant, to take care in a little more detailed way. So as we look at this particular weekend coming up, we have a Saturn sextile Pluto, right? Neptune sextile Pluto has been impactful for a long time. But now, kind of tweaking the vision, transforming the ideals, transforming humanity at its very, foundations. But Saturn now comes along and is kind of tweaking what is going to be more of the long-term change energy. What's the rebuilding going to look like, right? It's not fast change here necessarily. It's not really even dramatic. It's more deliberate, right? It's the kind of change where you look back later and you think, wow, that's when things really started to shift because I made a choice to take a step forward, right? I took that next step. This is when we start to build something that lasts, where we take a look around us and we're like, oh man, this, I've got to do this first. I've got to build the foundation first. Making choices that stick, that you're willing to, commit your energies to, right? The half-heartedness of some decisions is what really kills us, right? We sort of get into something and we're, just mucking around in it, not really, committed fully. So it's time to really make a choice that sticks, which begs the question, how do I make the right choices for me? And again, that's where we go back to your human design, right? Your human design type and strategy and authority really align you with how it is that you make the best decisions for you. And this is the time when we're stepping into a new level of self leadership. How do you lead yourself through this world? So it's also very grounding energy, even though this is happening in fire and air. Fire and air, that's a volatile combination, right? What if fire is driven by air, right? You add air to a fire and it becomes explosive. It becomes transformed in a way that is, very much about moving, right? It's moving energy. So if you're sitting here this week and you're thinking, oh, nothing's much happening in the atmosphere, uh, I want you to pause and ask yourself some very serious questions. Number one, what am I being asked to take responsibility for? What is it that I'm being asked to take responsibility for? You're not being asked to take responsibility for everything. You're not being asked to take responsibility for something that isn't yours to take responsibility for, right? Keep that in mind. What are you being invited to grow up just a little bit more for? What are you maturing, right? What are you, letting it take its natural growth path? What that is important for us all this week. What choice would align me with the person I'm becoming? Right? What choice would that be? What choice would align me with who I'm becoming? Because this week isn't really very loud about those things, right? We've had that loud voice at eclipse time, we've had that at ingress time, but now what we have is a week where we are making much more decisive inroads into the answers to those questions. I hope all this is making sense. Okay. Now, let me stop here, stop sharing my screen for a minute and find out for people how you're doing. Uh, Teddy says, want to see the stars? Hit that like button. Thank you very much, TJ. Hit the like button, subscribe, share the video with your friends, all of that good stuff. Good morning, Willow Rose. Good morning, Natasha. 6 years ago, she says, my deepest truth was being seeded in spite of the stories around me. Good blessings, everyone. Right? So, that's it was an important time. It was a very important time. And sometimes we don't notice how important that time was until we get to some point like this and we look back and we see how far we've really come. What really, how much change has really been enacted in the world, in myself, in the choices I've made. And I would also say that at this point, you could offer up a course correction, right? A course correction might be really good, a good timing for a course correction. And if you're feeling like I know something is shifting inside of me, but I can't quite name it, that's exactly where your cosmic soul blueprint comes in. And that is the time for you to get a reading, right? This is the perfect time for that. We're in the beginning of the new year. We are at the start of something new. And the building energy is now with us, the energy of actually building, constructing something as contractors show up here outside my window. Um, so your chart will show you where this is happening for you and what you're being asked to step up and into, and how it is that you're designed to work with these energies instead of guessing your way through them. So if you've been thinking about getting a reading, it's a beautiful time to do it, right? Just time. It's just the right time, right, to get some clarity. All right. So, Catherine Worcester, good morning. And Amy D, great. And TD Hawk, good to have you with us. She says, 2021, I was faced with the revelations of some dark family members' behaviors. Wow. Right? and those behaviors and how they impacted you, right? And how you were buying into that, maybe how you were living your life according to that behavior, or all of those things come to the light, and you're like, wow, what do I do now? Right? How do I step into something more me than me living out somebody else's energies? So it's a perfect time. And yeah, okay, great. So you guys all get that this is a great time, right? This is really a great time. And then as we move into this Wednesday, Wednesday the 25th, we start a new human design week. So we've just come through the March equinox or the spring equinox, which is always a time when the gates of love in your human design get defined, right? It offers us up a new opportunity to take a new direction. This one was a major opportunity because it came at the spring equinox, which is the Aries 0 point, which is the beginning of the zodiacal or astrological new year. So it's a threshold, right? There's a doorway, big doorway for us to walk through in a new way, to agree with the energies of the time. It would be about really embodying love, right? That all of the equinoxes and solstices begin with an energy that is related to some form of love, right? It grounds us into this idea of, in this case, universal love and love of being here on the planet, basically embodied as a soul walking this earth, right? The pleasure of being in the body to live out universal love and acceptance in the physical, right? The divine meeting the physical. And now, as we move into the second week of the astrological year, we get to the gate 17. And let me share my screen with the human design chart on it. Um, bup, bup, here we go. So now what you're seeing is the human design chart. And let me get back to StreamYard here, where what we can see is the sun is up here now on the ajna. The second center down is called the ajna. It is all about the thinking processes. It is the center for certainty. It is the center where we hold beliefs and where we hold self righteousness, where we hold, in this case, the gate of opinions, right? The gate 17 is what will be stimulated as we get to Wednesday's energy, and the earth grounding us in the spleen in the gate 18. And that reminds me to remind all of you that we are now at the time where the earth begins to move through all the gates of the spleen, grounding, as it were, the fear out of us, right? Grounding, helping us to understand the impact that fear is having on the decisions that we're making, and where the things, the actions are that we are willing to take often relate to the fear field. So here we go. On Wednesday, we have the first gate that will represent Earth in fear. So remember in October, so last week of September, all of October, and first week in November, we have the sun moving through these gates. Now, from March through April and the first week of May, we'll have Earth moving through all of these weeks, grounding. This is grounding energy. So, yeah, this pairing is so aligned with the energy of the week that we've just talked about astrologically, because now we move into this realm of the mind and the pattern and the correction of the pattern, right? The gate 18, where the earth is called the gate of realignment, right? It was a gate called perfection in or criticism. It is a gate that where we fear things won't be perfect or that we're not perfect. So we make a lot of choices that are around a fear of perfection. Like instead of publishing that book, we hold it back because it needs more edits, or it needs a new chapter, or it needs something, more, or we're afraid to put that new program out there in the world because if we do, it's not perfect, right? The flaws will be visible. And that is an energy that we have to move past as this week starts to dawn. So let's start with the gate 17, which is the gate of opinion in the lowest energy in the gene keys, right? That's the shadow is opinion. In the gift level, it's farsightedness, the ability to see beyond, right? And in its highest energy, the gate 17 is omniscience. So let's break this frequency down and see what we're talking about. So in traditional human design, the gate 17 up here in the ajna is called the gate of opinions. Sitting in the ajna, this is the place of mental processing and pattern recognition and meaning making, right? So this is really the center that brings all of what we think of as the mind together in the processing of memory, of contrasting, of belief making, that type of thing. So we have this time now in the gene keys where this becomes a much deeper journey, where we really go through the depth of opinion. So let's talk about that because, opinions aren't by themselves bad, but opinions can become a very big shadow when we become self-righteous about them, right? Where we cannot see that there is the possibility of another opinion. This is where we get attached to being right. And this is where we form rigid mental patterns or positions, right? We're here, we're there. We're not going to be moved one way or another. And this is where we filter the reality that we live in through our existing beliefs, right? And I'm sure all of you know different people out there who always see the good in everything, right? Because they're filtering the world through their beliefs. As well, you've got the cynics out there that filter the world they see through those cynical thoughts and beliefs and ideas. Neither is right or wrong, by the way. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but it just, when you run into somebody like that, that they're filtering the world through their beliefs, but so are you. So am I, right? We see what we believe. We don't see what's necessarily real. Okay? So this is good stuff, right? To think about right now as we're getting ready to make that move. So if you see a world and believe the world is unkind, ugly, unloving, then that's the world that you start to see. Your reticular activating system in your brain starts to select for you to see the things that align with that belief, right? That align with that opinion. Likewise, when you start to change your beliefs, the reticular activating system in the brain starts to bring you more of the things that you believe so that you can live through the choices that you're making, right? So, in the shadow of opinion, we stop seeing clearly, right? We're not actually perceiving truth, we're projecting it outward onto others. I hope you guys see that, right? You get this? And with Saturn sitting here now at gate 17 and the sun, this could really show up as fixed thinking. So, in your own world, take a look at what your thoughts are and what do you truly believe, right? What do you believe? Because it shows up as a fixity in that thinking where you got stuck in a belief. It could also show up as judgment of self or others, and also the pressure that I know a lot of people are feeling right now to figure it all out. And I remind people all the time that our human design very clearly shows us that we are not designed to make decisions from the mind, right? The mind is an awareness tool, a consciousness tool. It is not a place to make decisions, right? Your decisions come further down in the body. We'll talk about that another time. But so the gift now of the gate 17 is farsightedness. And this is where things begin to open up. Your mind begins to open up and see the bigger picture, right? The gift of the 17 it's not about having the right opinion or being right. It's about seeing patterns over time and holding a broader perspective, right? Remember, I said last week, as we talked about the 17 briefly, that it's the first gate in the scientific method, right? The scientific method, which says, okay, I have this theory or I have this hypothesis. A hypothesis is just an opinion. I've seen a pattern and I need to test it now to see if that pattern holds sway in various different situations. It's also about holding a broader perspective, seeing the world in a bigger way and allowing multiple truths to coexist because they do, right? They do. This is wisdom, by the way, in this particular gate, in this gift. This is the ability to really stop and say, I don't have to decide what's right now or what's true right now. I can observe what's unfolding. I can be detached from having an opinion and just take a wait and see kind of place, right? You don't have to have an opinion. And this is perfectly aligned with this week's astrology, by the way, because nothing is forcing clarity out there today, tomorrow, the next day, through Saturday and Sunday. But everything out there is inviting awareness, right? It's inviting us to look deeper, to look further inward, to look higher, to see things from a wider lens or a wider perspective. Okay. Now, in the Siddhi, omniscience is the energy of the gate 17. And at its highest level, this is the dissolution of opinion altogether, right? No opinions anymore. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no fixed perspective. It's just pure seeing. Now, we don't live here all the time, right? Sometimes we can get here. Sometimes we can see from this higher peak, but even touching this frequency of omniscience reminds us that truth is not something you own. It's something you witness, that you're seeing in your outer world and seeing it through your own perception, which is skewed at times by the place that you are in a culture, the interactions that you've had with society, with family, with tribe, with country and nation, with the institutions that we've been a part of, the education system and the banking system, and all, on and on, right? These things have really caused our, or created, helped create our perceptions, right? So now let's jump to the gate 18, because the gate 18 down here on the spleen center is the spleen, remember, is the center for time, intuition, health, and well being. In its shadow, it is the fear gates. Every one of the gates on the spleen can double as um, points where we get stuck because of fear, right? And as we work through these, then notice in your own body where the energy of, in this case, the shadow of judgment, where it might have crystallized somewhere in your beingness, because it has, right? We're human. So we have judgments, right? We have these things. Now, the gate 18 says, if you see something, what are you going to do about it, right? Because everybody's going to act differently about something based on their perceptions. So in the shadow of judgment, what happens is we're just seeing what's wrong. We tend to skew to the what's wrong, not what's right, right? We tend to criticize. And we also mean that means also that you tend to be more criticized by others. We tend to focus more on the flaws when we're in judgment. And does that kind of sound familiar in your life, right? The gate 17 forms the opinion. The gate 18 wants to fix it, but it's critical, right? It gets into this very critical kind of energy. When we rise to the level of the gift where the earth will be this week, we get to integrity, right? This is where the correction becomes conscious. Um, that's another word that we use for the gate 18 is called the gate of correction. It's a gate where, really, if you think about it, the gate 18 is across from the gate 58. So down here in the root center, the gate 58 is the gate of bliss or joy, vitality and joy, right? Living a joyful life. And what gate 18's purpose is about is really course correcting to be realigned with joy and happiness and mastery of yourself and your emotional energy and your path, your roots. Where am I going to go? So the gate 18, has this wonderful opportunity to rise into this integrity, which is about being true to yourself, but also, holding yourself up to a standard from a position of love of self, not from the position of judgment and critical of oneself, right? So you're coming from alignment and you're coming from care and you're coming from devotion to improving yourself, right? And not standing here and saying, "Oh, I'm not good enough," right? You're not coming from that point. You're coming from a much higher point. When we get to the city, it's perfection, but it's not perfectionism, right? It's not perfectionism, but the recognition that everything is already in its right place in the evolutionary process right this minute. Because remember, the spleen is all about the now. And in this now moment, everything is as it could be, as it should be, because it doesn't have any other place to be right now. Now, tomorrow, that's a different story. 10 minutes from now, that's a different story. But the spleen is always operating in the now. So if we bring all this back together, we bring the gate 17 and 18 into the story of Saturn sextile Pluto, of Neptune sextile Pluto, or very soon to be sextile Pluto, and the sun in the sextile to Pluto, as well as being conjunct Saturn, we have responsibility for our own opinions and thoughts and actions. We have Pluto supporting transformation for us to change, to elevate, to evolve. In the main, Pluto is about empowerment as an evolutionary impact, right? As we evolve, we become more empowered. The gate 17 is being activated and it's activating our mental frameworks, asking us to, take a look at that. Gate 18 is grounding the earth, grounding correction and refinement, but not from a place of perfectionism, but just as a place of evolution. So this week is a week where you may notice you're thinking more than your circumstances. So you may be, in your mind quite a bit this week. You may see what needs to change before anything can actually happen. But then you can take new action, right? That's the key. Taking the new action once you recognize this older pattern. You may catch yourself in an old pattern of judgment or of, certainty about what you think, how you think the world works. And then this is your opportunity to elevate that, right? To step back and detach from what you believe to be true and understand that that truth is being filtered through a perception that you hold. Okay. And that everybody's holding a different filter, a different perspective, perhaps a different perception. And this is why we have this wonderfully beautiful tapestry of people on this planet, but also why we have a very polarizing and crazy feel of clashing against ideologies and so forth. And that's such an old energy. It's so encrusted and trapped in fear. And the only way that we can rise out of that is each of us individually looking at where it is that we are trapped in that fear and choosing to move away from that fear. To just say, okay, I see you. I get that I've had this fear of the other, or I've had this fear of failure, or that I'm not perfect. I don't want you to, just ignore that. I want you to integrate it, right? Integrate that has been a part of your process, but that you at any moment can choose to move to the next level, right? At any time, you can choose to take opinion and move it up to the next level, right? To farsightedness. You can choose to take farsightedness and move it to omniscience. It's all in your hands, right? So this is the time for us to sit with these new energies. Where am I holding on to an opinion that limits me? I don't know if I think I did tell you guys I'm reading this whole series of books and it's rocking my world. right? Because I too have realized I hold some pretty powerful opinions about what I think is going on in the world and who's doing what, who's to blame, and all of this. And the first book that I chose out of the four that I ordered was called The Secret History of the World. And it's written by Jim Marrs, Marrs, I believe it is. And it's an older book. It was written in 2000. It's pretty funny that I think a 2000 book is an older book, but it is. That was 26 years ago. And yet it holds a lot of things breaking up sort of some of the beliefs I've held about how this world works. And not as a scare tactic either, just as a laying it bare. Oh my goodness, there it is, right? So, where are you holding on to an opinion that has somehow been limiting you? And where are you judging instead of understanding? Instead of applying acceptance or tolerance to the picture, what is it that you are judging? And what if I allowed a bigger picture to unfold before deciding what's true? What if I took a bigger look at all of this, right? And, then things could be different, right? We would have a different viewpoint of the world. We'd have a different viewpoint of who we are in the world, as well as allowing for a different viewpoint for others of who they are in the world. So this week, you don't need to change your life. That's not necessarily what I'm saying, although that's possible if necessary. But you do need to change how you see yourself in your life, right? How do you see yourself, and how do you change that? How do you elevate that? So this is not a week necessarily of big events. I mean, sure, we still have last week's, big energies that are activated, and it's possible something, big will happen this week. It's more a week of internal decision making, right? And realignment of your actions to be in alignment with those truths of who you are. And those quiet decisions that we make every day to show up in our lives in a different way or in a more empowered way, to be more open-hearted, to be more uh, far-sighted in our views, right? And those quiet little decisions, they really shape our reality and our future far more than the loud ones ever do. So, taking a look inside, what are those small decisions? So, anyway, that is our week, right? That is our week ahead. And it's it's funny because I always look ahead in the week and I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be a boring week. But then I get into it and I realize, oh, hey, there's a whole lot going on. And I just want to remind you that our architecture of the future transit that has been activating is still there. It's still activating, right? It's still there. And if I show you the picture again, I'll show you where it is. It's this green um, triangle, right? This green triangle is called a minor grand trine. And that has been the architecture of change. That is building something of a lasting nature under the surface. And all of these big boom sort of things that go on in our outer world are a part of that, right? This architecture of change. And the architecture of the future is also, I think I've called it that periodically as well. And you can also see it's part of a kite pattern for the week where, or just for the day actually, where the vertex of the chart is holding the point at the other end. So that's an interesting energy for just the day where maybe there are people or instances of activities that rock our world, right? That rock our beliefs. So that'll be kind of fun to see how that plays out. Good morning, Jana. Good to see you with us this morning. So I did some cleaning out this weekend of my, I'm going to call it my undercarriage, but under my work table where I have all of my card decks. And it was amazing how many card decks I have that I totally forgotten I had because I couldn't access them. But luckily, my husband helped me get underneath here. And one of them is the fairy tale heroine. I got this back in, I think it was November, maybe October, maybe even earlier. And let's pull a card from that for us for the week ahead. Just because this is an oracle deck, And I really feel like it gives us, some insight into the week ahead. Tom, oh my goodness, good to see you. I've wondered where you've been. Any significant astrology for March 28th? March 28th is Saturday. That is the day that Saturn is sextile Pluto, and is the day where, if we think about the world at large, the sextile can really bring some change that, oh gosh, that can be devilous. And I say that because what did I pull? I pulled this card called the Devil, and it's card number 12. Can you see the 12 there? It's a 3. It's fascinating. Let's see what this little guy is all about. The Devil, 12. Oh, that's right. This one is done in different. Forgot all about this. Okay, so the Devil is going to be a part of a different section, and I'm going to have to find what this section is called for you. This is the section of guides. So the Devil as a guide, right? So this book is kind of written in different suites or suits. Okay, the Devil in fairy tales is a malign character who wants to possess the heroine, to steal away her soul. He tempts her with riches and good fortune, so it's not surprising that making a pact with him might seem on the surface to be a winning strategy. But there are consequences for dealing with the devil, and the devil always deceives. He will tempt us onto a path of instant gratification at the expense of our long-term growth and well-being. In some stories, the devil acts as the archetypal trickster, and at the heart of the trickster archetype is disruption. Remember, Mercury often plays the role of the trickster as well, and he has just changed direction, right? He's just moved to forward motion. So when a situation is stagnant or isn't working, in comes the trickster to break something and set the world into motion again. The breaking isn't always comfortable, but quite often it's necessary to make room for the new and to kickstart its progress. So this card warns us to be careful about who we trust and encourages us to try to see through the disguises the devil might wear to mislead us. What we require above all when faced with the devil is an attitude of wariness, of perception. And of course, what I didn't mention this morning is perception is also discernment, right? Discernment. What's tempting you? And can you see through the surface appearances to discern the truth of the situation that you're facing, right? So, in a way, even the devil in the tarot is about waking up something deep within us so that we can look at what choices we're making and how those choices are impacting us. Uh, and because we got the devil, I'm going to go to the angel guides and pull us another card to maybe see a different perspective, right? The angel and the devil. How ironic to get that card. I think so too. I think so too. Okay. Now we get, guardian angel. So here's our card to balance this one out. Guardian angel. It's beautiful. Let's see what this one means. I could guess, right? I could guess that deep within each one of us, we all have guardian angels, or what we might call spirit guides, that help keep us on the right path, that, help us make those decisions. So here we go. Everyone has a guardian angel who has been with them since their soul's creation. Now, your guardian angel is drawing closer to you than ever. This angel guide knows you, loves you, and accepts you completely. Before your incarnation on Earth, you danced across the stars together. I love that. You danced across the stars together. If you're feeling overwhelmed or alone at this time, know that your angel guide is with you to share their love and make you feel safe. You never walk this path alone. Angels are always there to light the way. This card is a huge reminder that you always have their help, support, and companionship available to you. Now, the extended message for this card is you are an independent soul and often find yourself trying to do everything on your own. But know that even just a quick prayer to your guardian angel can take away some of that pressure. Your angel wants to hear more from you. In order to support you fully, they must be invited to do so. But then no request is too much. Your angel guide was made for you and is dedicated to you. Take time today for an easy and informal conversation with them. Speak openly and in a heartfelt way about your life and any challenges you are facing and anything you need help with. Through that conversation, their help will find its way to you. When you draw this card, they want you to know they are with you. Kind of funny, right? The angel and the devil. Angel and the devil. And literally a balancing between, right, these two different energies, these very different facing energies. All right, guys, that's it for me. I believe I am on air on Wednesday with everybody as well, taking a look ahead at the month of April, which promises to be quite vigorous. And uh, that means be ready, right? Be ready. Get some good key decision making done this week on the direction of your life. Reach out to me if you need a reading and help in discerning what direction that is. And I will see you Wednesday and then also again on Friday. Bye for now.